Discover how an Apache gave up his farms for a life-changing love with a widow in 30 days. Ethan stood in the blistering sun, the scorching heat pulsating off the barren soil of his family's ancestral land. Every step felt heavier, burdened by the weight of his ancestors' expectations. They were farmers, survivors, and hard workers. But as he surveyed the parched fields, he felt more like a ghost wandering through memories of what once thrived. His crops were wilting, dreams dwindling, the American dream slipping through his fingers like sand. Across town, Margaret stared at the bustling streets, feeling more like a shadow than a person. The recent loss of her husband hung heavy in her chest. She felt the eyes of the community on her, the whispers, the judgment. Everyone knew her story, even if they hardly knew her. Grieving was a lonely path, especially in a close-knit town where isolation lurked behind each cheerful smile. Their worlds collided during a volunteer drive at the community center. The atmosphere buzzed. Laughter, stories of loss, and shared struggles filled the room while Ethan served food with a stoic demeanor. He noticed Margaret from across the room, her eyes flickering with kindness, a spark of understanding. Their first conversation was tentative, yet there was an electric connection, two souls yearning for hope amidst turmoil. "Got your hands full farming, huh?" Margaret asked, her words genuine. "Yeah. It's hard," Ethan replied, feeling a knot in his throat. He wanted to scream about how much harder it was than anyone could imagine, but the words wouldn't come. Days turned into weeks as they shared fleeting moments in that community center, echoing each other's struggles. Laughter became their refuge. Yet, with each act of care from Margaret, a meal, a smile, a listening ear, Ethan felt his pride prickle. Did she see him as a project? A pity case? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the annual Harvest Festival approached, excitement filled the town, but for Ethan, it felt like a noose tightening. He saw Margaret reaching out, offering help to prepare for the festival. But his pride pushed her away every time she extended her hand, making it clear he needed no rescue. "You don't have to take pity on me," he snapped one night, frustration spilling over. The moment hung between them like a storm cloud, emotions raw and unguarded. Margaret's eyes shimmered with hurt. They both realized their vulnerabilities collided, fears and insecurities drawn out into the open. After their tension broke, the community rallied together as they always did. They came forward to help Ethan, neighbors he'd known since childhood stepping up in ways he never expected. But in the midst of the festival's preparations, he was at a crossroads. Could he let go of his farm, his pride? Could he accept Margaret's love? As they both contemplated these questions, whispers filled the air about their bond, judgments swirling. This time, Ethan didn't just hear the doubts, they echoed in his heart. What lay ahead for Ethan and Margaret, standing at the edge of newfound beginnings and deeply etched pains? Could love truly triumph over their fears? The festival loomed, and answers hovered just out of reach, leaving both their hearts racing with anticipation. As the sun set on Festival Eve, the town gleamed with brightly colored lights and laughter. The square was alive with families, couples, and children running about, filled with excitement for the festivities to come. But amidst the joy, Ethan felt like an outsider. He stood on the sidelines, his hands shoved deep into his pockets, pulling at the fabric as if hoping he could hold on to his resolve a little longer. Margaret was in the thick of it, her laughter ringing out, infectious and bright. She moved gracefully among the crowd, her spirit vibrant. Ethan watched her, his heart aching with a swelling sense of admiration, mixed with a tinge of guilt. She took a moment to pause, glancing his way, offering a smile that felt like a lifeline. Unable to resist, he strode over, feeling every heartbeat thunder in his ears. "Looks like you're having a great time," he said, unsure if he sounded friendly or lost. "I am," she replied, her voice warm, yet her eyes danced with a shade of concern. "I was just thinking, maybe you could help me with the decorations." He hesitated, their earlier argument still fresh in his mind. "I don't know. I'm not sure I'm cut out for that kind of thing." Margaret tilted her head, her expression earnest. "It's just stringing lights and hanging banners. Plus, it would mean a lot to me if you joined in." Her sincerity stabbed right through him, but he fought back the urge to refuse. With a reluctant nod, Ethan agreed, his heart pounding. They wandered to the center of the square, where the wooden framework awaited their touch. With each light they strung, with every shared laugh, he felt the walls he built around himself start to crack. But his heart still clung to fear of what it meant to lean on someone, to share his burdens, to crave connection again. "Ethan," Margaret said suddenly, her tone serious as she adjusted a string of lights, "can I be honest?" "Sure," he replied, his voice low. "I've seen you struggle, but I also see the man you are beneath it. You don't have to handle everything alone. I lost my husband and now I'm trying to find my way back to happiness. I can only imagine how trapped you might feel," she shared, vulnerability etched in her features, her words echoed in his mind, becoming entangled with the pride he clutched so fiercely. "I don't want anyone to think I'm weak," he admitted. "It's hard to ask for help when everyone expects you to be strong." She stepped closer, her gaze steady. "True strength comes from letting others in, Ethan." He shifted his weight, letting the enormity of her statement sink in. Could he really let her let anyone see his struggles, his vulnerability? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over them, he realized the weight of his solitude felt lighter in her presence. However, the flicker of doubt still loomed. Could he truly change? Just then, a voice rang out, shattering the moment. "Hey Ethan! You coming to join the dance?" A group of town friends stood nearby, grinning. Ethan cast a glance at Margaret, seeing the urgency in her eyes, the unspoken opportunity for connection dangling in the air. Could he seize this moment? Would he let go enough to really be part of something, to not isolate himself? Ethan hesitated, caught between the past and what lay ahead. Would he finally take a step beyond his fear, or would he remain just another shadow in the bright lights of the festival? The moment hung between them, and as laughter reverberated through the town square, his heart quickened with the possibilities. Would love finally break through his walls? Ethan felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. A leap hung before him, but the ground below seemed so distant. The laughter of his friends felt like it was pulling him, yet a formidable weight anchored him in place. He could feel Margaret's eyes on him, swimming with hope and encouragement. "See Mon, Ethan. Don't leave us hanging," one of the group called, gesturing animatedly. Their jovial cheer was contagious. He could hear the distant rhythm of the music, a pulse echoing every heartbeat within him. He took another look at Margaret. There was something vibrant, something free in her laughter, a light that drew him closer. Could he really take this step? Could he dance this dance, even when every instinct warned him to stay still and hidden? "Just one dance," he muttered, almost to himself. It felt like an electric promise, a risk wrapped in a whisper. As he approached the group, the crowd parted like a wave, welcoming him into their joy. The music soared, buoying the atmosphere with an upbeat tempo that thrummed against his chest. Margaret's smile broadened, and without thinking, he reached for her hand. The moment his fingers brushed against hers, warmth cascaded through him like sunlight breaking through clouds. He pulled her closer, their bodies swaying to the beat as the world around them blurred into vibrant colors. They moved together, laughter and cheers erupting around them, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of elation break through the suffocating layers of doubt. "Look at you," one friend teased, nudging him playfully as they whirled in tandem. Ethan couldn't help but laugh, the sound bright and newfound. Margaret kept their rhythm, her blue dress swirling around her knees, catching glimmers of light. It was as if the festival had come alive just for them. With each step, he felt those walls that had fortified his loneliness begin to crumble, brick by brick. "See? You can let go," she said, her voice soft but vibrant, like the melody surrounding them. "This is what it feels like to connect." He met her gaze, and for a brief moment, everything faded away, the past burdens, the fears of vulnerability. It was just them, and the simple joy of each other's presence. Yet, even in this bliss, a nagging thought lingered at the back of his mind. What if this was temporary? What if, once the festival ended, so did the laughter and connection? The weight he felt shifted, transforming from self-imposed walls to the realization of how much was at stake. When the song faded, he pulled her aside to the edge of the square, hoping to gather his thoughts amidst the festive chaos. "Margaret," he began, uncertainty clouding his voice. "What if this is just a moment? What if I can't turn into this person you see?" Her expression softened, as if she knew the storm that raged within him. "Then I'll help you discover it," she replied firmly. "Every moment counts, Ethan. You don't have to rush it." His heart raced again, torn between hope and the fear of extending himself into the unknown. As the festival lights twinkled around them, illuminating the night like the stars above, he understood that this was just the beginning. "Will you promise to stay by my side, even when it's hard?" he asked, the question spilling out before he could mask the vulnerability. "I promise," she said, and the sincerity in her voice wrapped around his heart like a warm embrace, but just as he reveled in the moment, a commotion erupted from the center of the square. The music shifted to something lively, but the energy felt different now, sharper. A group of newcomers burst onto the scene, their boisterous presence dominating the festive air. As Ethan looked on, a familiar face emerged from the crowd, a face that sent a chill through him like a bolt of ice. What was he doing here? And how would this change everything they had just begun to build? Ethan struggled to catch his breath, his heart racing as the familiar face drew closer. It felt like the sky had darkened around him, the warmth of the festival fading into a distant memory. There he was, Ryan, who had once been his best friend and now felt like a ghost from a past he'd rather forget. What is he doing here? Ethan wondered, dread pooling in his stomach. He had spent years trying to shake off the weight of their friendship, a bond that had twisted and broken like an old vine strangling a new tree. The laughter around him now felt out of place, as if the joy was mocking the storm brewing inside him. Ryan's eyes scanned the crowd. When they landed on Ethan, his expression transformed. At first, it was surprise, quickly shifting to something sharper, a challenge. Margaret followed Ethan's gaze, confusion flickering in her eyes. "Who is that?" she asked, her voice barely rising above the music. "That's Ryan, my ex-best friend," he replied tightly, the words tasting bitter in his mouth. Margaret's grip on his hand tightened reassuringly. "You okay?" He hesitated. No, he wasn't okay. But he couldn't let that ruin this moment. "Yeah, just I didn't expect to see him here." Ryan was walking toward them now, weaving through the crowd. Ethan could feel his pulse quickening, a growing urgency to protect this newfound sense of joy. With every step Ryan took, he braced himself for confrontation, for words that could cut through the atmosphere like a knife. The music shifted again, the upbeat tempo turning into an almost sinister undertone. Ryan broke into a grin, but Ethan didn't feel reassured. There was a sharpness in Ryan's smile, an undercurrent of something that had nothing to do with niceties. "Ethan, my old friend," Ryan called out, voice dripping with false warmth. "What a surprise to see you here. Dancing like you've got no worries." The laughter around them faltered, a collective breath holding as everyone turned to witness the reunion. Ethan could feel their eyes on him, weighing the tension in the air. He forced a smile, even as his heart raced. "Yeah, well, it's a festival," Ethan replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "What about you?" "Oh, just passing through," Ryan said, as if he had not uprooted Ethan's life years before. Margaret stepped closer to Ethan, her presence a protective shield. Maybe you should take a step back, Ryan. We're just trying to enjoy the night. Ryan's gaze shifted to her, curiosity flickering like a flame. And who's this? Your new dance partner? Ethan felt a rush of urgency. Yes, and I'd like to keep it that way. The defiance in his voice surprised him, pushing through the lingering fear and doubt. Oh come on, Ethan, Ryan chuckled, but there wasn't a hint of humor in it. She can't be that special. You've come so far, don't tell me you're falling for her. Margaret's eyes sparked with surprise at the sudden tension. Ethan felt a rush of protectiveness for her. The very connection that had brought him joy was under siege. Let us go, he said firmly, turning Margaret away from Ryan. But Ryan stepped in front of them, effectively blocking their way. The festivity around them was replaced by a palpable charge. What's the matter, Ethan? Don't you want to chat with your old pal? Ryan taunted, voice low. Ethan's heart pounded. He was being pulled back into a game he had thought he'd left behind, one filled with manipulation and doubt. He had just found something beautiful, a connection that felt right, and now it was threatened. Let us not do this here, Margaret whispered. But Ethan shook his head, determination hardening his expression. No. This ends now. As the crowd buzzed with uncertainty, he sensed Margaret's warmth beside him, grounding him. He took a deep breath and summoned every ounce of courage he had. I'm not that person anymore, Ryan. And I won't let you drag me back. In Ryan's eyes, something shifted. A flicker of surprise, quickly masked by irritation. Around them, the crowd had begun to lean in, sensing the conflict. What will you do about it? Ryan sneered, a spark igniting in Ethan's mind. That was the question. What would he do about it? Would he fight for this connection he had only just begun to develop, or would he let the past seep in like poison? The atmosphere was electric, as his heart raced faster than ever. In that moment, he realized he had a choice to make. Either back off, or we settle this, Ethan declared, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Would he fight for his future, or would he falter under the weight of history? As he awaited Ryan's response, Ethan recognized that everything was on the line. The laughter, the joy, and the promises exchanged with Margaret seemed to stand still as the tension unraveled before him. What was going to happen next? Would he finally break free from the chains of the past, or would he be pulled into a confrontation he never wanted? Ryan's grin faltered, replaced by a flash of anger. Settle this? You think you can just walk away from me like that? After everything I've done for you? Ethan's heart pounded in his ears. The crowd holding their breath, their eyes pinned on him, felt suffocating. He glanced at Margaret, her eyes wide with concern, urging him silently to hold his ground. I don't need you, Ryan, Ethan said, trying to summon strength. You didn't do anything for me but bring chaos. I've moved on. You should too. The gathered crowd murmured, surprise rippling through them. Ethan felt emboldened, words flowing almost effortlessly now. I'm not going to let you bully me anymore. Ryan leaned in closer, invading his space, his voice low and menacing. So you're just going to forget everything we had? Everything I sacrificed? You owe me, Ethan. You always will. Ethan's blood boiled. You didn't sacrifice anything for me. You used me to feed your own insecurities. What's left of our friendship is nothing but a ghost. Ryan's expression darkened. You think you've become someone special just because you found a new toy? He gestured to Margaret, dismissing her with a flick of his wrist. What makes her better than all the other girls you've tried to replace me with? The deflection hit Ethan like a barrel, but he stood firm. Margaret is not a replacement. She's a real person, and I care about her. You wouldn't understand that. The primal urge to stand up for himself surged through him. Margaret squeezed Ethan's hand, grounding him, her gaze steady. You need to go, Ryan. We don't want any trouble. Ryan scoffed, rolling his eyes. So now you're going to play the hero? You think you can defend her from me? He seemed to relish in the antagonism, heightening the tension. Ethan felt an icy spike of fear, but it quickly transformed into something fierce. I'm not playing a hero. I'm simply standing up for myself, for us. Ryan stepped back, crossing his arms with a smirk, letting the crowd's energy shift to excitement. All right, Ethan. Let us see how strong you really are. Because if you think you can just stand here and say no to me, you're in for a surprise. Ethan's breath hitched. What are you going to do? Try to ruin my life again? The crowd shifted, whispers mingling with the festival's music, creating an environment charged with uncertainty. For every shared laugh and twinkling light, there was now this dark cloud hovering above them. Let me remind you how easy it is to bring you back down, Ryan sneered, the venom in his words clear. What makes you think I won tea? You really think you're untouchable now? Ethan hesitated. In the back of his mind, the shadows of the past flickered, old fears, regrets, the weight of Ryan's betrayal creeping in like a cold fog. I'm done being afraid of you, Ethan breathed, his voice steadier. You may think you hold power over me, but I have something you don't: hope, love, and a future worth fighting for. As he spoke, Margaret's eyes sparkled with admiration, and Ethan could feel the connection between them strengthening like a flame against the dark. There was courage in vulnerability, and for the first time, he owned his truth. Ryan's face twisted with rage, confusion battling with his anger. We'll see how long that lasts, he hissed, finally stepping back. But know this, Ethan, I'm not done with you yet. I never am. Ethan watched as Ryan turned and walked away, but the fear didn't vanish. Instead, it shifted, transforming into determination. With the storm settling, the festival's music returned, wrapping around Ethan and Margaret like a warm embrace. They stood together, their fingers intertwined, grounding each other amidst the chaos. What now? Margaret asked softly, searching Ethan's eyes for reassurance. Ethan took a moment, thinking of the fight he'd just waged and the love blossoming beside him. Now, we face whatever comes next. Together. And as they began to walk away from the tension, a new worry crept in. How deep did Ryan's shadows go? The night was filled with unanswered questions, but for the first time in a long while, Ethan felt the spark of something bright in his chest. He had stood firm, he was ready to fight for what mattered, but a nagging thought lingered: how would Ryan retaliate? The stakes felt higher than ever, and Ethan knew he couldn't let his guard down. As they strolled into the heart of the festival, laughter echoing in the air, he couldn't shake the feeling that the next confrontation was already lurking just around the corner. Would they be ready for what laid ahead? Ethan felt a strange mix of exhilaration and dread as he and Margaret moved deeper into the festival. The laughter of children played off the distant sound of music, creating an atmosphere that felt almost festive again, yet the memory of Ryan's angry glare lingered in Ethan's mind like a shadow. Are you okay? Margaret asked, her voice cutting through the noise. She leaned in closer, her eyes searching his. There was a warmth there, a safety that comforted him amid the chaos. I'm fine, he lied, forcing a smile. But the truth was that the thrill from standing up to Ryan faded quickly, replaced by a tight knot in his stomach. As they wandered through the festival, Ethan tried to focus on the twinkling lights, the colors dancing around them, the delicious smells wafting from food stalls. But even the most cheerful sight felt dimmed by the ominous cloud of uncertainty looming just beyond their bubble. Suddenly, he noticed a group of his friends gathered around a game booth, shouting and laughing. Maybe a distraction would help clear his mind. Let us go join them, Ethan proposed, hoping to shake off the tension clinging to his thoughts. Margaret's expression brightened. Yes. I love the ring toss. I'm going to win you a prize, she declared, determination sparking in her eyes. Ethan couldn't help but chuckle. He watched her walk confidently, and it made the apprehension slide off just a little. They approached the booth, where laughter buzzed like a swarm of bees. As friends greeted him, he felt a wave of gratefulness wash over him. These were the people who stood by him. They had his back, no matter what Ryan tried to pull. "Hey, Ethan!" one of his friends shouted. "Ready to lose to Margaret?" Ethan laughed, the playful banter exciting. But just as Margaret picked up the rings, a chill crept over him. He glanced around, catching glimpses of Ryan in the distance, his figure lurking at the edge of the crowd, observing. Ethan's heart raced. He inhaled deeply, trying to calm the storm brewing inside him. Margaret tossed her first ring, landing it perfectly on a bottle. "Yes. Did you see that?" She beamed, bouncing on her heels. Ethan smiled, but his focus remained on Ryan. He felt a thump in his chest, a reminder of the tension that still simmered just beneath the surface. The laughter and joy from his friends felt muted as he kept catching Ryan's eye. It was clear he wasn't just leaving quietly. "Ethan." Margaret's voice broke through. "Are you even watching?" He turned to her, her excitement infectious. Forcing himself to focus on her, he gave her an encouraging nod. "Of course. I'm all in." As she tossed another ring, Ethan sent a sideways glance back at Ryan. What if he didn't go home tonight? What if he came back for revenge? Ethan felt the fragile edges of his newfound courage teetering. The game concluded, and Margaret won a fluffy bear, her face lighting up with joy that momentarily chased away Ethan's unease. "Look what I got you." She laughed, holding it out to him. "Thanks." "It's adorable," he replied, but the weight of uncertainty began to settle back in his gut. Amid the cheers of his friends, Ethan's mind raced. He had found strength, but would it be enough for the war that Ryan seemed ready to unleash? As fireworks exploded in the sky, a brilliant display of colors, Ethan couldn't help but think how ephemeral it all felt. Would he be able to protect this happiness, this newfound love, against the darkness that Ryan brought with him? "Ethan, are you with me?" Margaret's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. "Yeah, I'm here," he murmured, but even as he stood with her, he couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was far from over. As the fireworks fizzled out, he locked eyes with Ryan across the crowd, who had now stepped closer, arms crossed, a smirk plastered on his face. The next chapter of their story was about to unfold, and Ethan could feel the tension build. An inevitable confrontation was looming. What would happen when Ryan finally made his move? Ethan's heart raced as the last fireworks faded, leaving a hush that felt heavy with expectation. Ryan stood there, an anchor for the tension that had been building all night. His smirk widened, a challenging invitation. Ethan stole a glance at Margaret, who was still clutching the bear, her excitement undimmed. "Go get him, Ethan," one friend nudged, oblivious to the storm brewing between them. But Ethan hesitated, his resolve like wisps of smoke. What if confronting Ryan only ignited the fire? "Maybe we should get some food," Ethan suggested weakly, hoping distraction would be their shield. But Margaret's brow furrowed. "You don't have to avoid him. I mean, you stood up to him before, right?" "Yeah, but..." Ethan sighed, not wanting to drag her into this battle. "I just don't want you to get caught in the crossfire." "You're not dragging me into anything," she insisted, stepping closer. Her eyes locked onto his with a fierceness that gave him a sense of strength. "I'm with you. Always." Her words wrapped around him like a warm blanket, but Ryan's presence loomed, the ground shifting beneath Ethan's feet. He took a deep breath, pushing back the fear clawing at him. Maybe now was the time to wrestle with the past rather than run from it. "Fine," he finally replied, steeling himself. "Let us see what he wants." As they approached Ryan, Ethan could feel the air thicken, the kind of charged silence that promised a storm. He noticed how Ryan's smug expression didn't waver as he leaned casually against a carnival booth, as if waiting for the perfect moment to unleash chaos. "Ethan," Ryan said, his voice dripping with mockery. "Nice to see you enjoying the festival. Too bad you don't have the guts to stand up to me in front of everyone." Ethan clenched his jaw, annoyance mixed with mounting fury. Is there a reason you're here? Or do you just enjoy ruining things for others? Ryan shrugged, feigning indifference. Oh, I'm just wondering when you're going to realize that you don't belong here. Especially not with her. He gestured toward Margaret, his eyes narrowing. Margaret's hand tightened around Ethan's, and he could feel her pulse racing through their joined fingers. I'm not scared of you, Ryan, she asserted, stepping slightly in front of Ethan. Stop acting like you own this place. Ryan laughed, a harsh sound that cut through the night like a blade. You don't know what you're asking for, sweetie. But don't worry. I'm just getting started. Ethan could sense the challenge in Ryan's eyes, the tension coiled tight. It was as if they were two boxers in a ring, the world falling away, the crowd a distant hum. But now, it wasn't just Ethan who had to stand strong. Margaret was beside him, her courage igniting something in him. Stop talking trash and just walk away, Ethan said, forcing his voice steady. You don't intimidate me. Really? Didn't he seem that way last time? Ryan shot back, his smirk faltering just for a moment. But keep telling yourself that. The urgency of the moment surged forward, tangible like the heat of the evening. Ethan's mind raced, contemplating whether he had the strength to face whatever would come next. The stakes felt dangerously high, and a part of him feared for Margaret. Let us go, he said suddenly, turning away from Ryan and taking a step back, half anticipating a confrontation, ready for anything. But Margaret tugged him toward her, pulling him into her warmth. No, we won't just back down. Not now, she insisted, determination shining in her eyes. The unyielding nature of her spirit sent a jolt through Ethan. In that fleeting moment, he realized he didn't just need to protect her. Together, they needed to confront the darkness looming over them. Ryan's laughter echoed again, but now it felt more uncertain, as if realizing he was beginning to lose control of the encounter. What's the matter, Ethan? Ryan called. Are you really willing to risk it all for her? Ethan turned, his heart pounding. You have no idea what I'm willing to risk. So let us find out. Margaret's hand tightened around his as they stepped closer, both defiantly facing the challenge before them. The air crackled, a moment suspended in time as if everyone was holding their breath, watching a venomous showdown unfold. This was only the beginning. What came next would determine not just their night, but their lives and love, shaking the very foundation they built. Would love be strong enough to face the darkness lurking in the shadows? Ryan straightened, the playful flicker in his eyes dimming as he took a step forward. The tension wrapped around them like a thick fog, palpable and electric. Ethan felt every gaze of the crowd, a mix of curiosity and expectation, and for a moment, doubt crept in. But Margaret squeezed his hand tighter, a silent reminder of their bond. Go ahead, Ethan, she urged, her voice steady as granite. Show him he can't win. Ethan licked his lips, steeling himself against a wave of uncertainty. He was sick of letting Ryan dictate his reality. You think you can scare me, Ryan? You don't know what I'll do to protect the people I care about, he said, his voice loud enough to draw attention. A smirk returned to Ryan's face, almost amused, and he stepped closer. People you care about? He scoffed. You're lucky she hasn't seen the real you. One wrong move, and she'll realize how pathetic you are. Margaret shook her head, her cheeks flushed with defiance. I know who he is. He is strong, kind, and loyal. You're the one hiding behind petty threats. Something shifted in the air. The crowd, previously engrossed in the spectacle, began to murmur amongst themselves. The shifts in their expressions, the blend of confusion and intrigue, only fueled Ethan's resolve further. Enough. Ryan barked, his facade cracking. This isn't about her. It's about you being a coward. With a steadying breath, Ethan stepped closer, driven by something deeper than rage or fear. You know what's cowardly? Bullying others because you feel so small. You think you're powerful, but those tactics only show your weakness. A flicker of surprise glimmered in Ryan's eyes, but he quickly masked it, recovering his bravado. Big words for someone who has never been in a real fight. Let's change that, then, Ethan challenged, adrenaline surging through him. Margaret pulled him back slightly, her flowing dress catching the evening breeze as she faced him, genuine concern etched on her face. Ethan, think about this. He's trying to provoke you. I know, he replied, keeping his gaze on Ryan. But I'm done being terrified. For us. The weight of his declaration hung in the air, mixing with the sweet scent of popcorn and fireworks that still crackled in the distance. Ryan's brows knitted together, a new flicker of uncertainty touching his expression. You think you can just turn your back on me? We're not done here. Maybe not, Ethan said, stepping back to rejoin Margaret, their fingers interlaced. But you will never control what happens between us ever again. Ryan's face twisted in frustration as the crowd began murmuring louder, sensing the shift. The balance of power had shifted, and for the first time, Ryan was at a loss. Something tells me you want to let this go, Ethan said softly, glancing at the thrumming crowd before meeting Ryan's eyes again. Just remember this moment. You may not have lost the battle, but don't underestimate the strength of true connection. With that, Ethan turned. He could feel the tension unraveling around him, the charged atmosphere fading into something warmer, a quiet triumph lingering in the air. Let us go, he whispered to Margaret, relief flooding him. As they walked away side by side, laughter and music of the festival washed over them, embracing them with every step, but an uneasy feeling twisted in his gut. They had faced a storm tonight, but what other challenges awaited? As they rounded a corner, the bright lights dimmed momentarily, a reminder that shadows were still close behind. And in that moment, a deep churning dread settled. There was no guarantee Ryan would back off so easily. The darkness was still lurking. Would they be strong enough to overcome whatever came next? The warmth of the festival faded as they moved further away from the crowd. Laughter and joyful shouts became distant echoes, replaced by a quiet alleyway lined with flickering lanterns. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to clear his head. He could still feel the adrenaline buzzing through him, but the weight of uncertainty remained heavy in his chest. Ethan, you were incredible back there, Margaret said, her eyes sparkling with admiration. She paused, touching his arm gently. I knew you had it in you. He smiled, but it felt somewhat hollow. Thanks, but I'm still worried. I can feel Ryan's anger simmering. We might not be done with him yet. Margaret's expression shifted from admiration to concern. Do you really think he'll come after us? Honestly? Yes, Ethan said, his voice low. Men like him don't let things go easily. She stepped closer, her warmth easing some of his pain. I want to let you face this alone, you know that, right? We're in this together. Ethan appreciated her words, but doubt still crept in. He had always been the protector, the one to shield the people he loved. It felt foreign to rely on someone else. It's just I've always been the one who stands up to bullies. And yet, how do I even fight someone like Ryan? It's not just me against him, it's the whole facade he puts up. Margaret studied him, and for a moment, the world around them faded away. We'll find a way to deal with him. Together. You showed strength today, Ethan. You challenged him when everyone else stepped back. That takes courage. He chuckled lightly, shaking his head. It feels more reckless than courageous. She raised her brow, a teasing smile cutting through the tension. Reckless can sometimes be the first step towards greatness. You're growing past the scared kid Ryan used to toy with. Just don't lose sight of your heart. The sincerity in her voice wrapped around him, filling the empty spaces of his doubt. Yet the unease still gnawed at him. What do we do if he tries to retaliate? It might not just be words next time. Margaret's eyes narrowed, thoughtful. Then we face it together. We build our own support system. Friends, family, we aren't alone in this. You have allies. Don't forget that. The mention of allies brought a flicker of hope. You think they'll stand with us if it gets tough? Absolutely, she replied, determination sparking in her gaze. We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're doing this for everyone who has felt the weight of his bullying. Together we can set an example. Ethan felt that familiar spark, the rush of courage mixed with love. He nodded, more assured. You're right. But we can't sit idle. We should look for support now. Just as they turned to head toward the nearest group of friends, the air suddenly thickened with unease. A figure loomed at the end of the alley, half hidden in shadows, a familiar silhouette that made Ethan's heart race. Looks like Ryan's not done yet. Margaret's grip on his arm tightened. What do we do? Ethan swallowed hard, his resolve igniting. We stand our ground. Whatever happens next, we face it together. They took a step forward, ready for the confrontation, but deep down, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The battle had changed, but the war was far from over. As they approached the figure, Ryan stepped into the dim light, a smirk plastered on his face. Looks like you two are living in a fairy tale. But every tale has its villains. Ethan's heart hammered, and he glanced at Margaret, whose face was set with determination. They had come this far, they wouldn't back down now. But how deep would Ryan's vendetta go? What other sides of the story were waiting to unfold? Ethan squared his shoulders and stepped closer to Ryan, refusing to let fear dictate his next move. The air around them crackled, charged with raw energy and uncertainty. He felt Margaret's presence beside him, her hand intertwined with his, and that simple contact gave him strength. Enough of this charade, Ryan, Ethan said, his voice steady and firm. We're not afraid of you anymore. Ryan chuckled bitterly, the sound echoing down the alley. You think you can just sweep everything under the rug? You think short-lived bravado is enough? Ethan took a deep breath, resolute. This isn't just bravado. This is me standing up for what's right, for who I am now and who I want to be. You can't hold me hostage with fear. Ryan's expression shifted, anger flared in his eyes like a match ignited in darkness. You really think you're going to walk away from this unscathed? You don't know how vicious I can be. Margaret stepped forward, bringing a fierce light to the encounter. Viciousness doesn't equal strength, Ryan. That just reveals your fears. You've been hiding behind manipulation and bullying, and it's pathetic. What are you hoping to prove? The tension in the air was palpable. Ethan felt the murmurs of the crowd begin to seep into their confrontation, drawing more eyes and whispers into the drama unfolding. But for the first time, Ethan felt like the crowd's attention pressed against Ryan, morphing his power over them into weakness. Maybe it's time you reflect on your actions rather than try to project your insecurities onto us, Ethan added, his voice direct. Your threats don't scare me, they just reveal how small you feel. I'll show you small, Ryan hissed, but the bravado had started to fade. The smirk that had anchored his facade faltered as he realized what he was up against, a unity that had formed in the heat of the moment, something larger than their petty history. Margaret glanced at Ethan, her eyes bright with courage. We're not alone in this, Ryan. Look around. People from the festival were starting to gather nearby, sensing the shift, ready to stand witness or support. The community had rallied around them, and it felt like a beacon of hope igniting in Ethan's heart. Ethan doesn't have to prove himself to you anymore, one of his friends called out from the crowd, echoing the sentiments that swirled in the evening air. We're all here for him. Ryan's eyes darted around, absorbing the gathering crowd that began to form like a shield around Ethan and Margaret. The arrogance melted off his face, replaced by the faintest flicker of fear. He shifted nervously, caught in the crossfire of his own making. Don't think this is over, Ryan spat finally, but there was a tremor in his voice that hadn't been there before. You don't know who you're messing with. Neither do you, Ethan replied, his voice low yet firm. When you mess with people's lives out of insecurity, you expose your own brokenness. I'm not interested in that game anymore. As Ryan stood there, hands clenched and simmering with loss of control, something shifted in Ethan, a lightness, a release. It felt as if the weight Ryan had placed on his life was finally lifting. The crowd grew behind them, in solid unity, not just spectators, but a community standing, alive with support. You're not the only one who can stand up, Ryan, Ethan continued, his heart soaring. We're not backing down, and neither are our friends. It's time for a change. Ryan's defiance wavered, and in that moment, Ethan realized the true power of community, the strength that comes when people come together, united in love and respect. Ryan unleashed a final growl, but it was too late. The tide had turned. With the crowd cheering Ethan on and Margaret's hand crushing his in solidarity, Ryan took a few steps back, the remaining bravado dissipating into uncertainty. Fine, he spat, his fury still glimmering but his will weakening. Enjoy your little victory. But don't think I won to be watching. Ethan nodded, meeting Ryan's gaze unflinchingly. I look forward to it. Ryan vanished into the night, the shadows swallowing him whole. Relief washed over Ethan. The storm had finally broken, a clearing beginning to take shape. Ethan, that was amazing. Margaret exclaimed, her eyes shining. He pulled her closer, soaking in the warmth of her support. I couldn't have done it without you. Together, they turned to their friends, who erupted into cheers and applause. The bonds of friendship felt stronger than anything Ethan had faced before. He looked around at the people who had stood with him, the community that rooted for him to succeed, not because of the weight of his past, but because of the man he was choosing to become. Underneath the cool night sky, vibrant with stars, Ethan knew this was just the beginning. He had faced the darkness, and together with Margaret and their friends, they would forge a brighter path ahead. Let us dance, Margaret said, grinning as she pulled Ethan back toward the festivities. And as they joined the thrumming pulse of music and laughter, he felt a fierce joy erupt within him. The night was alive with possibilities. Ethan took her hand, no longer a man burdened by the past but one who had a future filled with love. A warmth swelled in him, a flame that outlined their tomorrow. This was what it was all about, casting aside fear and embracing the beauty of connection. As they stepped into the crowd, the festival sparkled back to life around them, each laughter merging into a jubilant dance, celebrating resilience, love, and newfound hope. This was their moment, a reflection of the strength that lay within, and it was only just beginning. Now, if you felt the power of that moment and want to dive even deeper into these incredible stories, subscribe immediately to the channel, because you need to be here for what comes next. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the magic alive. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this intense ending. What would you have done? And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this amazing transformation. Only true fans understand how critical it is to support the channel through these actions. Join the journey with us.